Hello, everybody. This is All Star Productions, and today is a historic day. The Developers Journal has begun. Adam Ryland has now spoken, and we finally get to take a look into how and what is coming in the next episode, in the next evolution of the World of Mixed Martial Arts series. If you've been waiting for WMMA6, if you've been refreshing the forums, and if you've been dreaming about new universes, new fighters, and new chaos, this is the moment we've been waiting for. Let's break down the first day of the WMMA6 Developers Journal. I will try my best to do every single day. I will say, though, on Thursday and Friday, I am going to be busy this week doing other things. I've got family stuff that I'll be doing this Thursday and Friday, so I won't be able to cover those this Thursday and Friday. I will cover them again, though, when I get back. I'll talk about both of those days when I get back. But for now, just sit back, relax, and let's break down the day one of the WMMA6 Developers Journal. We're going to go straight into the Developers Journal first. So we'll get into the new features Adam Ryland has revealed for day one. And he came out swinging. First of all, he said the game will now use a real-world calendar throughout. This is massive. WMMA has always used a fictional calendar system with like the week 1 Monday, and then it goes all the way up to week 2. Now we'll be able to actually have an actual days for when we do shows and how everything else will go. That is great. We'll having real dates, real months, real years. I mean, we already had real years and real months, but we'll have real days, real weeks, real timeline tracking, real title reign lengths, real historical comparisons, real days since last fight accuracy, and this changed everything. We're going back into what TEW9's doing now with this, which is great. It'll make the world feel more grounded. Title histories will feel more meaningful. Fighter timelines will be easier to follow. Database creation will be more intuitive. And for content creators like me, that's a dream. Imagine being able to say, like, for example, on March 12th, 2027, Alex Pereira shocked the world, instead of being like on week 2, month 3, year 4. This adds some huge realism, and it's a huge upgrade for that. But honestly, at the same time, I kind of figured this was going to happen because the same thing there is going on with TW9. So at the same time, I kind of figured there. But yeah, no, I think that'll be great. Then he said there a lot of work has been done on slashing the load times, in particular when setting up a new game, and the in between the days processing time. You'll now see days fly by significantly faster, and the slowdown that can occur in longer games is far less pronounced, although obviously the game will inherently get somewhat slower as you get deeper into a game, due to the simple fact there'd be far more historic fights to take into account than at the start of the game. It is difficult to give exact figures, as your experience will depend a lot on the age and specs of your computer, but to give us a concrete example, running the same data on WMMA5 and WMMA6 on my bog standard 3-year-old laptop gives around a 60 to 70% reduction in between days load times over the course of the first year of the game using the default database. So that is also huge. WMMA5's biggest weakness was long processing times, especially in the big universes, as you guys know. But WMMA6 is there to fix that, which is great. That's one of the complaints I had, and lots of other people had within the data, within the community. I saw all kinds of different content creators frustrated because they want to do the real world database. They want to be able to book the UFC. They want to be able to book one championship or Ryzen, or even go farther back and doing the dawn of MMA with, like, again, one championship or Pride or Pancrase, or, you know, like, people want to be able to do that kind of stuff too, because it's the real world. Who doesn't want to do a real world save? And Adam Ryland and Grey Dog Software in general have seemingly managed to make a fix to that, which is great. So that in turn will make everything feel smoother. You'll be able to play smoother, and it's going to process smoother, which in turn is a game changer. Now we'll go into the frequently asked questions. The first thing that was talked about for the frequently asked questions is, when is the game coming out? And he then said, we are expecting to release the game in either late August or early September, depending on how final testing goes. An exact release date will be confirmed closer to the time. Also, I did want to mention, I didn't say this earlier, but he did say, welcome to the WMMA6 Developers Journal. For those who haven't been with us for the previous versions, the purpose of the journal is to reveal all the new features and modifications that will appear within any upcoming game, so that you know what to expect before any of the releases. There will be a new entry every weekday for the next 4 weeks. Before we start with today's first entry, here's an FAQ to bring everyone up to speed with the basis of the project. So I know I started with the FAQ last, but I wanted to jump straight into it. But so I already gave you the release, and for that we got the game coming out weeks away. Not months, not years, weeks. This is the closest we've been to a new release since WMMA5 dropped in like 2018. Let me look. When did WMMA5 come out? WMMA5 came out January 2018 by Grey Dog Software. So, yeah, there's that. But now we're now we're jumping into the price. He said it said how much will it cost, and he says the price will be confirmed closer to the release. That makes sense. I imagine personally that it'll be about $30. Actually, let me look to see how much WMMA5 is. It's $34.95. How much is TEW9? I feel like it'll be closer to how much TEW9 is. TEW9 is also $34.95. So, let's see. TEW 2020 is $19.95. World Mixed Martial Arts 4 is $19.95. So it'll either be $34.95. I think it'll be more expensive than that. I think it'll be more like $40.95 is what I'm thinking here. Because all the other games are like $14.95 or $19.95. Here, I can even show you. I'll even show you proof. Wrestling Spirit 3 is $19.95. Total Extreme Wrestling 2016 is $14.95. WMMA4 is 1995. TEW 2020 is 1995. Comic Book Universe is 1995. Fast Break College Football Basketball and Fast Break Pro Basketball is 1995. Bullbound College Football is 1995. WMMA 5 and TEW 9 are 34.95. So me personally, I think a release date will come in, a price will be about $40.95. That's what I'm thinking, but we'll have to wait and see. So how will the release work? He says, we will follow the same process as previous games. First, there will be a 1-week beta. This allows you access to all the features of the game, but will limit you to a certain number of months of gameplay per save game. This allows us to solve any installation problems, technical issues, and to fix bugs that slipped through testing before the game goes on sale. Makes sense. Any save games started during this period can be continued in the retail version, and the editor is fully accessible for database makers who want to work on mods during this time. The retail release happens immediately after the public beta ends. Again, makes sense. This is huge for modders, huge for early players. I'm going to become one of those. And huge for anyone who wants to dive into ASAP. So I'm very happy that they're bringing this back. I did not download WMMA 5 when the game came out. I downloaded it later. Same goes for like the TEW 2020 and TEW 9 game. I downloaded TEW 9. Actually, I downloaded TEW 9. Like, I bought the game and downloaded it not long after that game came out. I did buy that not long after it came out, but I didn't go to the public beta or anything like that because I didn't feel I needed to. So this will be the first time I'll do the public beta. So if anybody has any tips or on public beta stuff, if they have anything with that, please let me know, because that would be very great. I would love to have your guys' input on any of that. So let's see, what are the minimum system requirements? They will be the same as for WMMA 5. If you can play WMMA 5, you can play WMMA 6. As always, I will remind people that Grey Dog Software is explicitly a Windows-based developer. We do not make games for Macs, and we do not make games for Linux. So if you want to play WMMA on an operating system, you would need to use separate emulation software, and we cannot provide support for that. So that is a little bit of a bummer, but I understand why, because it just costs a lot more money in that sense too, to be able to have to port that over into other operating systems. If you don't know what I'm talking about, you can skip this. But I'm a little bit of a nerd. But if you do know what I'm talking about, that's great too. But like being able to have to, because I have done work on Linux thing, like OSs. Our Androids are OSs, operating systems. Our iPhones apparently are a form of Linux or Unix or whatever the case may be. I know Unix is not Linux, but I know some Linuxes are inspired by Unix at the same time. But so yeah, again, it is a bummer for those who are using Linux or Mac or any other operating system, but I get it, because porting that into all the different file bases, going through firewall, and just having to deal with all the different potential changes that could occur when porting the Windows OS into other OSs. Plus then at that point too, a lot of people would be asking to do a port into other OSs. For example, if they did a port from Windows to Linux, then Mac users would be saying, hey, what about us? And then they do a port to Mac, and then Unix comes in and says, hey, what about us? and it's a whole mess, and I get why they don't want to do that, because they don't want to have to mess with any of that. So I get it. Let's see. What license system will it use? WMMA6 will use the same QLM system that we've been using for the past few years. If you are returning to the series after a long hiatus, please note we do not no longer use the e-license system that you may be familiar with from the older games. That means you can move your license between multiple computers very easily, but can only have it active on one machine at a time. So let me help you guys out here a little bit with that. Give me just a second. So here's what that means for WMMA6. QLM means you can move your license between multiple computers easily. You can only have the license active on one machine at a time. It's a lot smoother than the e-license system. There's no weird activation code issues that you'd have to worry about. You just go straight into it, basically. And you don't have to worry about losing your license if your PC dies or breaks or whatever the case may be. It's simple, modern, and reliable. Exactly what you'd want for a game, especially if you're running in long saves. So WMMA6 will be sticking with QLM, and honestly, that is a good thing. I know some people that may be returning may be a little bit weirded out by that. I do know that some people are going to be a little confused at first, but I promise it's simpler. It may not look like it at first, but for some people, but it is simpler. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, that's great. I did have to deal with the e-license system, like for TW 2020, for example. They have the e-license system. They don't use the QLM. So that was a struggle, but because like TW9 and WMMA5 use the QLM. I think WMMA5 used e-license at first too, but they switched over to QLM. At first, TW 2020 did not switch over to QLM, so it was a hassle. But anyways, on to the next question. Will AI generated pictures be used for all the characters like in TW? The game will not be using AI generated art for the game world as part of the retail release. But I mean, and then it says the art style will be the same as you will be used to from previous iterations. The intention is that we'll be releasing an alternate version of the default database with AI generated pictures for all the fighters post-release as free DLC. I'm pretty sure that this intended release will go ahead as the majority of the work is already done, but we do not currently have a release date for when this will be available and is not part of our official release date. So I'll go a little bit deeper into this because I'm sure some people are a little confused by that. But for those who don't know, for those who do know what I'm talking about, you've seen it before. You'll see the classic art basically for WMMA6. Post-release, you'll see full AI generated pack. It's the best of both worlds. You'll get the traditional style at launch, and later you can switch to the pictures if you want a more modern look, or if you're building a massive mod and want visual consistency. It's a huge win for modders, it's a huge win for immersion, and it's a huge win for people who want to stick traditional, and honestly, it's a smart move. We've seen it before, like in TEW9, but It's good. It's good to see that that's happening. So going back to the next question now, let's talk about it says, I'm intending to make a mod for this game and want to start collecting pictures. What dimensions should I be looking at? The dimensions are identical to those you're familiar with from WMMA5 is the answer to that. Let me try to explain that a little bit to you as well. So if you're a veteran modder, this sentence will tell you everything you need. But if you're newer to modding or have never worked with portraits before, let me break it down to you. So WMMA5 uses two main portrait sizes, and WMMA6 will use the exact same ones. For the fighters, it'll be 150 by 150 pixels in square format. That's used everywhere: roster screens, fight cards, bios, rankings, etc. The small thumbnails will be 50 by 50 pixels, automatically generated by the game. You don't need to create those manually, and the game will scale them down from the 150 by 150 image. That's it. No widescreen images, no tall portraits, no special formats, clean, simple, square images. So why do they stick to the square portraits? It fits cleanly into the user interface. They scale well. They're easy to crop, and they work for both real world and fictional databases, and it keeps the databases visually consistent, and it avoids stretching or distortion. So the interface is built around those squares so that keeping the same dimensions makes modding easier and keeps the game looking clean and fresh for everybody. What does this mean for modders? If you're building a mod for WMMA6, you can already start collecting your images for those mods right now. You can already use your WMMA5 portrait packs, and you'll be able to convert WMMA5 mods directly into WMMA6. And we'll talk a little bit about that later. You do not need to necessarily redesign anything, at least in terms of having to switch from like 150 by 150 to 200 by 200, for example. And you won't need new templates necessarily either, unless you want to create new templates. And you won't need any new cropping rules like I was just talking about. So everything you know will carry over. This is a huge win because it means that real world mods can be updated instantly. Fantasy universes can be ported over. Existing portrait packs remain usable. And you can start preparing for the content before the release even happens for public beta, and that will let you test your mod immediately. And here's a quick tip for any new modders. If you're new to making portraits, crop the fighter's head and shoulders. Keep the face centered. Avoid any extreme zooming. Use consistent lighting when possible. And save the images as PNG or JPG. And keep the file names clean and simple. Consistency will make your mod look more professional. Next up in the WMMA5 FAQ, Adam addressed something a lot of people have wondered for years. Why is WMMA6 even happening? Because WMMA5 was originally announced as the final game in the series. And here's what Adam said. It was. However, since WMMA5's release, we've had two new iterations of the TEW franchise that have pushed the quality of that series to new heights. And I felt like it was a shame that WMMA was being left behind slightly. Therefore, I wanted to bring the project back so I could try and bring World of Mixed Martial Arts to the same level as the TEW games. The intention is for this to be the final WMMA game. So when WMMA 5 was released, Adam genuinely believed that the series was complete. He believed he built the simulation to a point where he felt it had reached its natural conclusion. WMMA5 was already deep and complex and stable, and at that time, it felt like the perfect stopping point. And when he's talking about TEW, which is Total Extreme Wrestling, it kept evolving, which World of Mixed Martial Arts didn't. So after World of Mixed Martial Arts 5 came out, Adam continued developing Total Extreme Wrestling in TEW 2020 and TEW 9. Both of those games introduced massive user interface improvements, deeper simulation systems, better world building, smarter AI, more modern design, quality of life upgrades, new tech under the hood. And as we were talking about earlier on with the real world calendar, it kept leveling up, and World of Mixed Martial Arts just stayed frozen. And Adam's saying that he didn't like that imbalance and he didn't want it to fall behind, saying that it deserves the same treatment. He didn't want WMMA to feel outdated. He didn't want the WMMA series to be stuck in the past. He didn't want WMMA fans to feel left behind. So he made the decision to revive the series one last time. Not to extend it forever, but to bring it up to the same modern standard as TEW. So WMMA6 is essentially a modernization, a quality upgrade, a final evolution, a definitive edition, and the ultimate version of World of Mixed Martial Arts. And Adam was very clear on this when he said WMMA6 was to be the final game. It's not the start of a new cycle, it's the final chapter, the comeback, the version that brings the series to its peak and then closes its book. WMMA6 is saying this will mean WMMA6 will be the most polished version. Jesus Christ, I can't speak. They'll have the deepest systems. They'll have the best user interface. They'll be the most modern simulation and the most definitive edition for years to come. It's not just another sequel. It's the final upgrade. The one that's meant to stand alongside TEW 9 in quality and longevity. And this matters for players because WMMA 6 is built to last. Modders can invest in it long term. The simulation is modern and stable, and the game won't be replaced anytime soon. The final version means long support and long relevance. WMMA 6 is meant to be the ultimate sandbox for mixed martial arts fans. The version we'll be playing for hopefully the next decade and for other decades to come. Well, on the next question that was asked in the FAQ, the question says, is there still time for me to make suggestions? And the answer says, not really, as the game is in final testing. If it's incredibly minor, I may be able to add it in before release, but it'd have to be a really small change at this point. If you have last minute small suggestions, the WMMA 5 suggestions forum is further down the board. So, yeah, the game's basically finished. The game's in final testing, which means all the major features are done. Most of the systems are locked in. The design's complete, mostly, at least. The simulation engine's finalized. The user interface is finalized. The database structure is finalized. It sounds like what Adam is saying, that he's only fixing the bugs, polishing up any of the features, cleaning up any potential mistakes that could happen within the UI, and making sure that everything's running smoothly. He's not adding big new mechanics or major systems. The game is essentially ready for release. And some of those things that he said was talking about on adding something that might be incredibly minor. It's like a wording change or a UI tweak. Not a fix by any means, or a change, I should say. A tweak. A small quality of life adjustment, or any sort of new toggle, or a small flag for databases, or something that doesn't really affect the game's core system. basically, from what I'm getting out of this, is if your suggestion takes less than a few minutes to implement and doesn't necessarily require testing, it could be possible. Anything bigger, probably not happening. The game's locked out of that part of that. And then he points people to the suggestions forum for WMMA5, which is still the place he checks for last minute ideas. Even though it's labeled WMMA5, that's where he collects feedback for the game, that game, and this upcoming game in general. But again, it seems only tiny suggestions matter now. Why are suggestions closed though? This is normal for game development. When a game reaches final testing, adding new features risks breaking any old ones that may still be a part of it. New mechanics require being able to cooperate within the new user interface. New systems require having to be able to balance everything together, make sure everything connects and directs to different platforms and different screens as it should. The new ideas require new testing. New content can then delay release as well. He wants the game to release on time. Grey Dog Software wants to add not make anything pushed back, which would only mainly be the case if we added more features. So the door is basically closed except for tiny tweaks. So if you had ideas for WMMA6, save them. Write them down. Keep that for modding. Keep them for future updates if any comes along, which there probably will. It might be a while though. And keep them for community projects. WMMA6 is built to be the final version, but it's also built to be highly moddable. Even if your idea can't be added officially, you'll probably be able to implement some of that through editing in the database, any custom events, maybe even custom fighters or custom promotions, any rule sets that might already be in the game, any scripts, and full conversion mods. But anything beyond that, I don't think is going to really end up being the case. And next up in the FAQ, Adam answered one of the most important questions for the entire World of Mixed Martial Arts community. Especially for modders. I already kind of talked about this, but give me just a sec. I'm opening a Ultra Blue Hawaiian Monster. Not sponsored. I wish so. Anyways. The question was, will mods from WMMA5 work in WMMA6? And this is what his answer was. As standard in my games, there is a converter facility in the editor that will turn databases from the previous iteration into workable content for the new version. You may need to do some light editing to make the resulting database playable, and obviously you would need to do some work to incorporate some of the new content that does not have an equivalent in World of Mixed Martial Arts 5, but you can certainly play World of Mixed Martial Arts 5 mods with World of Mixed Martial Arts 6 mods very easily. So we're going to break down what exactly this means. He's got a converter, which we've seen before. In WMMA5, they did the same thing with WMMA4. And with the TEW games, you see that all the time. You won't have to rebuild the mod from scratch. You won't have to re-enter thousands of fighters. And you won't have to redo promotions, belts, divisions, or histories. The converter will do the heavy lifting. When you load a WMMA5 database into the editor, the converter will automatically update the database structure, translate old fields into new ones, convert dates into the real world calendar is what you'll have to do on your own. Adjusting fighter data is probably another thing you'll have to do on your own. Rebuilding promotions and divisions, I'm sure that's hit or miss. And then it will automatically make the mod playable. Some honest, some normal, some of the light editing, as I already mentioned, the dates, some of the new features, the new stats, the new logic that WMMA5 didn't have. So WMMA6, with that there being saying that in WMMA6 is confirmed there are new systems that WMMA5 didn't originally have, potentially. So the converter won't invent missing data. You'll have to fill that in manually, but the mod will still run without some of that data as well. Bottom line, WMMA6 is extremely mod friendly. This is the best possible news for potential modders, because the previous games mods will convert easily. WMMA6 supports those mods natively, and you can start modding on day one. You can update your existing universe instead of rebuilding it, and the public beta will give us early access to the editor, which the game is designed to be the long-term version of the series, which we already talked about previously. Modding communities then can go all in without worrying about having to redo everything and waste hours upon hours of their work just for a new game to come out. And the mods will be able to last with it, which is great. And then the next question to that would be, can I continue my WMMA5 save game into WMMA6? And the answer to that is no. Although the games are obviously very similar, WMMA6 has so much new content and alterations that a save game would be missing far too much information to be made to work into the new game. So I'm going to break that down for anyone who may not understand why. Even though they both look similar on the surface, WMMA6 is set to have new systems, new stats, new database fields, new logic, the real-world calendar, as we talked about previously, new fighter attributes, new tools, and new simulation rules. The save previously simply just doesn't contain the data WMMA6 will need to run properly. Think of it like trying to load a PlayStation 2 save file on a PlayStation 5. Though the games might be related, the technology underneath is completely different. But why can mods transfer over but save games can't? Mods are just databases. They're lists of fighters, their promotions, weight classes, etc. Those can be converted because the editor can restructure them. But a save game is a living world with ongoing title reigns, fight histories, injuries, rankings, popularity changes, contracts, relationships, world events, simulation data, and more miscellaneous data of information that WMMA6 would of what WMMA5 there, but WMMA6 would need information that WMMA5 has never tracked. So the save files can't transfer, but mods can. And the last question of the frequently asked questions was, can I be part of the testing team? And Adam's answer to that was, no, sorry, there are no spots available at this late stage. Which, honestly, that is fair. But here's what that means for people who aren't familiar with how Grey Dog software handles testing. Why testing spots are closed. WMMA6 is in final testing, which means the team is already selected. They've been working on it for weeks now. The game is nearly finished. We have adding new testers would just slow things down. New testers require onboarding, instructions, and supervision, and last-minute changes could introduce new bugs. As we talked about earlier, Adams and Grey Dog software in general are probably just more focused on polishing things up, fixing bugs, verifying the stability, and of course they're preparing for the release and for the public beta, and bringing in testers would now disrupt the workflow. But players will get early access. Even though you can't join the private testing, Adam did confirm there will be a 1-week beta where everyone can play it, everyone can test it, everyone can report bugs, and they'll start modding immediately. Saves from the beta will carry over to the retail version. So while you can't join the internal team, you will be able to get a chance to help test the game before the release. And that ultimately wraps up day 1 of the WMMA6 Developers Journal. And honestly, this already feels bigger than anything we've got during the World of Mixed Martial Arts 5 cycle. We didn't just get a teaser. We didn't just get some small update. We got a full FAQ and 2 major reveals and confirmation that the game is weeks away from release. So, for a quick overview, we learned the new game is coming out in late August or early September. There will be a public beta for 1 week. WMMA6 will continue on using the QLM license system. The game will not use AI art at launch. A full AI portrait pack will come later as free DLC. Modders can convert the databases from the previous game directly, though the saves won't be able to transfer. The testing team is locked in, and World of Mixed Martial Arts 6 is intended to be the final game in the series. And then the first 2 features that were revealed in our overview, we've got a real-world calendar, and we've got what's supposed to be faster load times. This isn't just an update. This is a statement. World of Mixed Martial Arts 6 is the final evolution for the entire franchise. This is Adam saying if WMMA is going to end, it's going to end at the highest level possible. And you can already start to feel that. You can feel the influence from TEW, but you can also feel the polish and the ambition and the care that went into bringing World of Mixed Martial Arts back for one last run. And this is only day 1. We've still got 19 more journal entries, 19 more reveals, 19 more deep dives, and 19 more chances for Adam Ryland to blow our minds. Every weekday for 4 weeks, we're getting new features, new systems, new mechanics, new surprises, and at the end of August, WMMA6 drops. A new era begins. A new world opens. So buckle up, because if day 1 is already this big, just wait, because it's going to get even crazier. I'm All Star Productions. Thank you all for watching. Thanks for being here for the start of a incredible journey. And this is just the beginning. I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care, everyone.